Hi everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I keep switching how I position my phone, so I started getting used to the camera being on this side, and then usually I have it on the side that it's on currently. And then I've started to get used to it being on this side, but I switched it back to this side. I'm trying not to move my hands too much because I had to use this, which I don't know how much you can hear that, but I'm trying not to move my hands too much. But as you can tell from the title and the thumbnail, we are talking about books that I've read that made me fall in love with fantasy again. And I have, you can kind of see some of the stack here, but 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I have 12 books. 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6 of them cover a series or include a series. I do have 2 books off to the side here that I will mention at the end. Just because I was getting this list together and I was like, wait a second, I want to include some of this. So yeah, I'm going to include those at the end. And also next week's video will be just general books, it will include these books, but it'll be like a books I read that made me fall in love with reading, whereas this one's just fantasy books that made me fall in love with reading fantasy again. I've always been a big fantasy girly. It's just sometimes, there's lulls. Excuse me. Sometimes there's lulls. Sometimes you just get a little bit tired. And sometimes you're just over everything. So, yeah, this is just fantasy. Next week's video, I've been posting a lot on Wednesdays and Thursdays. So, next Wednesday's video will be generally books that made me fall in love with reading in general. So, yeah, and like I said, a lot of these books will also be included in that video, but I am organizing it by alphabetical order, so there will be some extra books thrown into next week's video. And the reason why I'm doing 2, and the reason why I'm including all of these books in that video as well, is just to have it be like a, if they didn't watch this video, or and also just to include some extra books. I was thinking of doing another one of these videos where I talk about books that made me fall in love with genres or enjoy genres that I normally don't read, because there are a couple, but a lot of the ones that I've been reading for genres that I typically don't read, I've been starting to read more from that genre, so it's it would feel like a little bit of a cop-out, and I usually do stick to my usual genres. So it's that, I'll see if I can do a video similar to this where it's books I've enjoyed outside of my usual genres. So let me know if you'd like to see that video. But getting into this one, the first book, also before I actually get into this, I'm testing out this angle with a stack of books, because I do, when I'm recording from my desk, my sister's bed is behind me, so I usually try to blur out that section of the room, just because that is my sister's half of the room. And I'm still trying to figure out a good way to record in my room that would be plausible. And I know that this is an angle, I've said it before, that this is a potential angle. And usually when I'm recording videos where I'm discussing books and I have a stack of books like I do right here, the easiest place to do it is on my desk, but I want to test this out on my bed to see if this would be plausible. So yeah, I'm being a little bit careful because I don't want it to fall one way or the other. I do have it. I did maneuver the stack in a way that I don't think it should fall, but we shall see. So to finally, after about just under 5 minutes, to finally get into this, the first book is The Foxwife by Yangsze Choo. Apologies if I did not say the name correctly. I absolutely loved this book when I read it, and a large part of the reason why I chose a lot of these books is because I felt while reading these, I felt what I had felt when I was first stepping into the world of Middle Earth. And that's usually my bar of like fantasy books, where it's like, am I feeling what I felt when I first read Lord of the Rings, when I first watched the movies? Am I feeling that love? Am I feeling that pull? Am I feeling that investment in the story? And even like not just fantasy, but it's like with books in general, it's like that's my bar usually is Lord of the Rings, um, or even the Phantom Tollbooth, um, which I will be mentioning a little bit later. But I don't have a physical. Oops, sorry. I'm trying not to like move this around too much, like I said, because it's kind of crackly, creakly. So I might need to figure out another way to do this. But anyway, getting back on topic, um, the Phantom Tollbooth is another good bar for me. Actually, I will mention the Phantom Tollbooth, but because I have reread it recently, but I am trying to focus on books that I've read within the past couple of years, a little bit more recently. Um, so anyway, back to the Foxwife. In this book, you are following this one I do need more of the description. So some people think foxes are similar to ghosts because we go around collecting chi, but nothing could be further from the truth. We are living creatures just like you, only usually better looking. In the last years of the Deng Qing Empire, a courtesan is found frozen in a doorway. Her death is clouded by rumors of foxes, which are believed to lure people by transforming themselves into beautiful women and handsome men. Bao, a detective with an uncanny ability to sniff out the truth, is hired to uncover the dead woman's identity. Since childhood, Bao has been intrigued by the fox gods, yet they've remained tantalizingly out of reach until perhaps now. So that's basically kind of what you need to know, the basics of it. I absolutely love this book so much, and had an absolutely great time with it. Was in love with the story. Was intrigued start to finish, and the characters were absolutely amazing as well. Very well written. 10 out of 10. Let me just check something real quick. Also, apologies, you're a little bit shaky. I'm trying to figure out a good setup still for recording from here. I also grabbed my computer because there's at least one book here. Yeah, it's just the one book that I do not have a physical copy for. So I just wanted to remember to mention that. But it is coming up pretty quickly, so it's not going to be a huge deal. The next book I want to read is the next book that made me fall in love with fantasy again, is one I read recently, and that is Bloodbond by Ellis Hunter. I had an amazing time with this. Forewarning if you're looking to reading this but aren't a big fan of series, this is the first book in supposedly a trilogy, so go into this with that in mind. And I absolutely love this. I got it in my book of the month box for April. Absolutely fell in love with the story. I read it as part of my Roll of the Dice reading blog, which I'm still currently in the midst of. It's soon going to be wrapping up though, at least this first part one. But to give you the description, Astrid has always known she is destined to die. She is the last Nocturne witch and heir to the queendom of Arturia, cursed by a centuries-old covenant to duel the heir to the kingdom of Vatra for the source of all magic, the heart. And now Astrid's time is up. She's heading into enemy territory to face Prince Zirin, the most powerful dragon rider in eons, with only her familiar, her potions, and her wits to aid her. She is going to die by any chance. She is going to die in any chance her queendom has of curing the blight that's ravaging the lands and killing her people will die with her. Meanwhile, deep in Dragon Country, Skylar and her traveling troupe arrive in Vatra's capital, ready to profit off the legions of spectators swarming to the city ahead of the duel. She despises the royals and all they stand for, especially as the King's Guard murdered her mother. But when her best friend disappears, suspected to have been taken in the conscription, her search takes her closer to the royals than she ever could have imagined. So that's what this one is about. Again, I had a really great time with it. Absolutely fell in love with the story. Crap, I need to. Oop, dang it. I'm so close. But absolutely great time with this story. Thankfully, hopefully, it will only be a trilogy. Maybe we'll get other books within this world. But really great story. Hopefully, the next book or two will be just as good. And then the next book is The Phantom Tollbooth by Norton Jester. Now, I did read this when I was younger, and I'm only including this because I did reread it recently, and I absolutely love this story. And this is, again, the only one that I don't have a physical copy for. So, in The Phantom Tollbooth, you follow a boy named Milo who has loads to do at his apartment, but feels like he doesn't have anything to do. He thinks everything's pointless, and nothing's worth it. And one day he gets home only to find a mysterious package, and he opens it up, and it's a toll booth. And this toll booth takes him on a basically magical journey. So there is some magical realism to it and fantastical worlds. I love this as a kid. I love it today as an adult because it's that perfect little. I feel like this is one of the earliest, not one of the earliest, but this is one of the earlier cozy fantasies because it's like Milo does need to get home and there are stakes, but like it's very cozy. And this and The Hobbit are definitely very cozy fantasy vibes. So, Phantom Tollbooth, I love it so much. The next book, I'm gonna set my computer aside now because I don't need it as much right now. But the next book is Emily Krempholtz is Not a Villain Anymore by Emily Krempholtz. And again, I read this when he's late. Perfect cozy fantasy vibes. This was a little bit more romance heavy than I prefer, but I absolutely love this. I feel like I'm entering my cozy fantasy vibes. Excuse me, my cozy fantasy era. So I'm here for it. I'm happy with it. But in this, you're following Violet, and in not necessarily in a past life, but before she had been the right hand of Guy Shadowfade, and he's dead supposedly, and she's determined to start over. And she opens up a little store in Dragon's Rest, and she opens up a little flower shop next to an apothecary run by Nathaniel March. And there's a little blight, not little, there's a blight that's starting to endanger the plants in Dragon's Rest where Violet has set down roots, and she and Nathaniel have to work together to figure out what's causing it and how to end it. So that's what this is about. And I think there's going to be a second book, so I think it's just going to be a duology. I'm not quite sure though. Don't quote me on that, but I absolutely love this. And I think I'm entering my cozy fantasy, which I'm perfectly fine with. So the next book is Under the Oak Tree by Suji Kim. I absolutely love this. I'm rereading this for my Roll of the Dice reading vlog. I absolutely love this story, and in this we're following Maxie, who is the daughter of the Duke Corsair, a very powerful duke, and she's basically been hidden away all her life because of her stutter, and then she's married off to an up-and-coming knight, Sir Riften, and he's basically risen in the ranks. And the morning after their disastrous wedding night, he goes off to war, and then 3 years later he comes back a war hero, and Maxie's really surprised to learn that he still wants her as his wife. And she's starting to learn her confidence, gain her confidence, learn about herself, and all that jazz. And precious couple, precious characters. Absolutely love this book so much. But yeah, absolutely love it. The next book I think will come as no surprise, but it is For Whom the Bell Tolls by Jaysea Lynn. This is the special edition, and I'm kind of going to continue what I did with the first one. But I'm going to get when the book comes out, I'm going to get the paperback, and then when they come out with the special edition for the second book, context for the second book, The Bells of Wrath. And I'm so excited for that, but I'm going to do the same thing. I might just continue. The thing is, I have the audiobook pre-ordered in Libro FM, and I'm going to pre-order the book. I have to double check if it's going to be the paperback or hardback, because I want to keep it continuous if I'm doing it this way. And I would want the paperback and the special edition of the hardback. So anyway, in this you're following, why am I blanking on her name? Lily. There we go. You're following Lily. She's just recently passed away. She's gained her paradise, and all her life, like due to religious trauma, she's been told she's going to hell, and she kind of believed that for a little bit. But she got her paradise, and then she ends up going down to hell on her own terms and helping out the demons, setting up a help desk, and she makes a lot of friends there. She meets Belle, and honestly, we love it. Fantasy vibes here for it. And honestly, Hobbit and Lord of the Rings references, perfect. So this absolutely perfect. I cannot wait for the second book. The next one, I'm gonna just show the one book as an example, but it's like the series as a whole. The Never After novels by Emily McIntire. I'm showing Crossed because I feel like this is the more recent of the ones that I've read. And I feel like this one and then Hexed are probably the more powerful choices for this argument, for this kind of a video, for me at least. Hexed and Crossed. And these are dark romance fantasies, so be aware of that going into it. It is dark. While it's fantasy, it's also dark romance. And in this, in specific, the Never After novels are like twists on some of the classic stories, like most of the classic Disney stories. There's Hooked, which is Peter Pan, and these are all like the villains get the main love interest. So in Hooked, it's Hook and Wendy, and then there's Scarred, which is Hamlet, but you could also say Lion King, but Hamlet. And then I'm not too knowledgeable about the Hamlet one, but or who would get the girl in that one. So if you know, comment down below. But if we're going with Scott, if we're going with if we're going with Lion King, it would be like a Scar gets like Sarabi or Nala. And then Hooked, Scarred, Wretched, and that's the Wizard of Oz and Fiero and Elphaba. Even though that happens in like the Wizard of Oz / well, it doesn't happen in the Wizard of Oz. Wicked. The name of the Broadway show is escaping me, eluding me. And then so there's that, Wretched, and then there's the Aladdin one, which I'm blanking on what it's called, but that one's Jasmine and Jafar. And then there's Crossed, which is Frollo and Esmeralda. I was about to say Emerald. Frodo and Esmeralda. And then there's Hexed, which is Vanessa and Eric. And in Crossed specifically, Father Cade he was brought up in the streets of Paris, and then he's called to a church in Festival, Vermont. And he basically, like, he's a pious, holy man, but there's like a darkness within him. And then he meets Amaya Paquette, who also who performs as Esmeralda. And when he meets her, he knows, like, okay, she's gonna be my downfall, so I have to kill her. So that's his whole thing. But if you need some like religious trauma therapy, this would be a good one. Very twisted religious trauma therapy, but it would be a good one, nonetheless. So the next one I have to talk about on a somewhat lighter note. This one will also be good for some religious trauma therapy. Greenteeth by Molly O'Neill. I read this one recently. I borrowed it as an audiobook from Libby and then bought the physical book because I absolutely love the story. And in this, a witch is thrown into a lake where a monster, quote unquote, a spirit of the water, known as the Jenny Greenteeth, and they, like, they're unusual friends and found family type of a deal. And then they kind of realize that the witch's home, Temperance's home, has been kind of overtaken by a not so great pastor. So they have to defeat him, basically. That's what this is about. So again, if you need religious trauma therapy, that would be a good one. And then the next one is another series, but I'm going to just show the first book. It's the Ardenshire series. Again, I feel like I'm entering my cozy fantasy, and there's nothing wrong with that. My cozy fantasy era. Nothing wrong with that. So, in this one, in book 1 for the Ardenshire series, A Fellowship of Bakers and Magic, you're basically following a human baker, Alessa Starstone, and she basically works twice as hard perfecting her unique blend of baking with apothecary herbs because she is in Ardenshire, which is a land riddled with magic and elves and dwarves and enchantments. And her orc neighbor and biggest fan enters her into the prestigious Langheim baking battle, so think British Bake Off. And she faces a dilemma because she's magicless, she's human, so it's probably gonna draw more scowls, the fact that she's in such a prestigious magical leaning competition. Even though it's baking, it's still magical leaning. So that's what this is about. Definitely cozy fantasy. And I was seeing this one promoted as like Lord of the Rings meets Great British Bake Off. Ellen Enchanted meets Great British Bake Off. What else was there? Princess Bride meets Great British Bake Off. Less so Princess Bride. I see where that's coming from though with this, but less so Princess Bride, but yes to the others. And then next up is, I am going through these kind of quickly because I don't want to spend too much time. I want to talk about these, but a lot of these I have talked about on my channel before. But I don't want to spend too much time talking about them right now. But the next book is one I haven't talked about in a little while. It's The London Seance Society by Sarah Penner. And this one is more like historical fiction fantasy, but it's enough fantasy that it fits here. And because it's been a little while, in this, I'm just going to give you like a little blurb. Amid the shrouded parlors of Victorian London, two daring women hunt for the truth and justice in the perilous art of conjuring the dead. So I absolutely fell in love with this. It honestly made me fall in love with historical fiction again. And honestly, I fell in love with the story, the characters, and it was just the right amount of spooky and magical and fantastical and paranormal, and absolutely loved it. I did try reading Lost Apothecary. I might try reading. Oh, I said that without trying to say the Apothecary Diaries. Because recently, ever since I watched the Apothecary Diaries, every time I want to talk about the Lost Apothecary, I try to say, my brain always starts to say the Apothecary Diaries. So that was the first time I said the Lost Apothecary without trying to say the Apothecary Diaries. But anyway, I did try to read The Lost Apothecary. Maybe I just need to get the physical book and try it that way. It didn't hit for me in the same way that the London Seance Society did, but I might need to just give it another shot. So the next part is part of like a little duology, and it's been out for a really long time, but it is something that I read more recently, so I'm counting it, and it's a children's book because, you know, fantasy and children's books go hand in hand. The Little Man of Disneyland. And this is something I think I've talked about before, but it's something I love doing. I've known about the story for a while. I just hadn't read the actual book because I didn't have it. But if you go to Disneyland and you're going towards Adventureland, or you're in the Adventureland, go to like the front tree right by the Indiana Jones queue entrance. If you go to like the front tree, it's like right before, like right across from the bazaar. You pass the Jungle Cruise and you're just about to pass Indiana Jones, but you go to that front tree. There's a little home. There's a little door with a little lamp over it and some little steps, and around the holidays it'll be decorated based on the holiday. But that is the home of Patrick Begora, the Little Man of Disneyland. And I finally read this. I also read the sequel, which is A Change of Luck. Absolutely loved it. And these are like perfect for kids too, but also it's just like, I'm not ashamed to admit that I'm a Disney adult. And part of it is also the fact that, yes, there are bad Disney adults or poor Disney adults, just like there are poor bad. I don't mean poor as in financially, but like poor as in character. But there are bad people everywhere. There are bad eggs in every nook and cranny of society, and nook and cranny of every niche of every fandom. But most of the Disney adults that I know, a lot of us are just choosing joy. A lot of us are just choosing nostalgic joy and current joy. Because it's not just about nostalgia, it's about the active choice to choose to be it's about the active choice of happiness. And that's what a lot of us are doing. And a lot of Disney adults are some of the first people to call out Disneyland's bullshit. Um, most of the Disney adults that I know and that I interact with on social media are some of the first people to call Disneyland on its bullshit. So, which says more than the bad eggs of the Disney adults. But anyway, a change of luck, Patrick Bergora. Basically, this was used as promotion for Disneyland before Disneyland opened, and they go to the area. Mickey and friends go to the area that will become Disneyland, and there they find a leprechaun, Patrick Bergora, who still lives there. And he's like, "What are you doing here?" And Mickey and friends are like, "Oh, we're gonna build this great place where everyone can come and have a good day, have a magical day, and it's gonna be for one and all." And it takes Patrick some convincing, but he eventually does say, "Okay, you can build it, but as long as I have a home as long as I can still have a home here, because I don't want to leave." So that's what this is about. Very sweet story. And then the next one is another duology, and that is the Elements of Cadence duology, A River Enchanted, and then A Fire Endless. I absolutely love the series. I will not stop raving about this series. Absolutely beautifully told. And in this, talking a lot right now. It starts with a letter and an ominous journey across dark waters. 10 years after being sent away to the mainland to become a bard, Jack Tamerlane is summoned back home to Cadence. Girls are going missing from the island, and Adara, his childhood nemesis, and the future leader of the clan, believes Jack is the one who can find them. So that's what this is about, and there's a lot of elemental magic here and elemental spirits like the fae, the fair folk play a big thing in this. So it's like if you like Irish Celtic mythology, especially like Northern Celtic, like this would be a great duology to read. And it's only 2 books, so we're very enchanted. And then the very last one I'm going to mention, I have the physical book. It's kind of a bummer because I do have to get the other omnibus physical books from Amazon, and I'm trying not to support Amazon, but at least for this author, this is the only way I can support them. But anyway, it's the God's Universe series by Alessa Thorn. I have the Gods of the Duat trilogy. Honestly, I read these when I was in a bit of a reading funk, and I think that's part of why I love them so much. But even if I didn't read them when I was in a reading funk or reading slump, I think I would still love these just as much, because it's like it taps into like my little mythology loving young Shanna, teenage Shanna, and while also being very much for adults. It is very spicy and it's not really dark romance, but it's adult romance in the sense of all of the couples are adults and they act like adults, because I feel like there's a lot of books lately, especially with romance, where it's like they're adults but they don't act like adults, and it's like, how old are you supposed to be? Oh, you're supposed to be in your early to mid 30s. Well, you're acting like you're in your mid teens. So yeah, that's another issue that I have with a lot of recent romance. But anyway, that's besides the point. The Gods Universe specifically, the first 7 books are I still need to also continue with it. But again, I'm trying not to support Amazon, so that means not doing Kindle Unlimited. So I have to figure out a way to support the author a little bit more. But in the Gods of the first 7 books are the Greek gods. The Gods of the Duat is the next 3 books, books 8 through 10. So these ones are Thoth, Seth, and Anubis. And then the next books are, and then the books following in the same series are about like the lost goddesses. But anyway, absolutely love this, and it's just like them finding romance. And then the first 7 books, the Court of the Underworld series, you're basically following the Greek gods, like I mentioned, or like some of the quote unquote monsters as well, and finding their loves, and then they have to deal with like this big bad enemy. It's been a while since I've read it. And then these ones, they're just basically trying to find Anubis again because Anubis has gone missing. And then the Lost Goddesses ones, I only read Persephone, so I would need to continue with that series. But absolutely love the series so freaking much. So, because I don't want to forget, because I have these titles right here. This is my manga mentions. I don't want to say honorable mentions because they deserve to be mentioned, but my manga mentions. First up is Apothecary Diaries. I watched the anime, I absolutely loved it, and I cannot wait to get more of this in October. And I do need to continue on with the manga. But every time I go to Barnes & Noble, I can never remember which book that I have. Okay, I have up to volume 6, but I never remember that because I always think I'm at like 4 or 5. But I'm up to volume 6 as of the time that I'm recording this, which means I can get volume 7 later. But Apothecary Diaries, I know there's light novels, but I started off with the manga, so we're going to continue with the manga. And then the next and last book recommendation in the next manga mention is Delicious in Dungeon. I did not give you a description for Apothecary Diaries. Boy. In Apothecary Diaries, you follow Mama, who is an apothecary, and she was trained by her great uncle / adoptive father. And basically, one day, while she's collecting some herbs, she is kidnapped and taken to the Weird Palace. And it's basically found out that she's literate, and then she joins the service of one of the consorts. So that's what this one was. And that's all you really need to know. And then Delicious in Dungeon is the next manga mention. And then this one, just to give you the description, it's eat or be eaten, literally. When young adventurer Laios and his company get attacked and soundly thrashed by a dragon deep in a dungeon, the party loses all its money and provisions, and a member. They're eager to go back and save her, but there's just one problem. If they set out with no food or coin to speak of, they're sure to starve on the way. But Laios comes up with a brilliant idea. Let's eat the monsters. Slimes, basilisks, even dragons, none are safe from the appetites of these dungeon-crawling Romans. So that's what this is about. And I watched the anime, I cannot wait for the next season, and I had a really good time with this. This is one that is finished. There's 14 volumes, so I think I'm up to volume 4. So I will just need to continue getting them and then reading them. So really excited about that. But with all that mentioned, that is the end of this video. If you made it this far, what is a book or a couple of books that made you fall back in love with reading from your favorite genre? Comment down below. With all of that said, like I mentioned, thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in my next video.